this systemic abuse of women can only happen when you strip away a man's honor, when you take their masculinity, their divine masculinity away from them. So the systemic abuse began before. This beast, let's call it, had to desecrate the masculine first before it could desecrate the feminine. It needed the masculine to lose all confidence in itself, to disconnect it from the divine feminine, because the divine masculine wants to be in devotion to the feminine. But this beast took the divine masculine and made it turn against the divine feminine by disconnecting from it. And the moment it disconnected from its source, right? Because XX was the beginning, right? So from its source, it began to deteriorate. It began to lose its life, its steam. And we forget the further you are away from home, the further you are away from the light, the further removed you are from love, you forget. This is Corinne Bloom, and you're listening to Raw Conversations. Hello, beautiful people. How are you doing today? So there's a lot that's come up if you're listening to this in real time. And today's topic is, it's a bit heavy. It's a bit heavy, but it's really important and really vital. And I think a natural progression of this evolution and this awakening that we're moving through right now, this remembering, this returning to what I would call like the natural template of who we are and who we're designed to be. And we've been so much in the opposite, in the inversion. So I'm talking today off the back of 62 million. And if you don't know what that is, Google it. I won't go into the details of it here, but the topic today is what's happened to men. Like, what has happened to men? What is going on? And the tagline to that is why women are going to be the changers of the world and why women need to begin to lead. And at the core of that, I spoke to this a little bit, maybe several episodes back. We really need to come together in collaboration, but the whole paradigm and structure of how we're working and functioning as a society needs to completely change. And I actually really do see now that women need to be at the helm, but with the collaborative support of the masculine. So you can go back some episodes and find I did a whole episode on women leading, really, and redefining the roles of men and women. There's a lot that's coming through, so I'm just taking a moment to pause. So I want to preface this by saying that when I speak to what I'm going to speak about, I am not putting down men. I don't hate men. This is not about dishing on men. This is really the symptom of a very, very sick society. And the society is sick because it's actually a very few that are affecting the many, they are profoundly sick. And so what we're seeing is we tend to want to like always go towards the symptom and fight the symptom. I mean, this is what Western medicine is often about, and it's different to kind of Eastern medicine that will really go like, okay, what is causing the symptom? Let's not just look at kind of suppressing the symptom, right? Take this pill, put that patch on. We want to go to why is this here in the first place. And so what I want to look at today is the core. What is it that's driving these symptoms that are showing us that like our society is profoundly sick, and that there is not all men, okay, not all men, but many, many men, and a culture of men that are profoundly sick and are in dire need of help. and the effect that that has on all of us. And when I see videos of men standing up and saying, hey, this is not okay, I think it's actually the first time that I've seen this many videos of men saying this is not cool, and until we fix this, all of us men are responsible. And I'm just like, yes, this is men in leadership, and it's men in leadership that are standing for women, finally standing for women. And there are men that are like, oh, this is just a joke and it's nothing. There's loads of gaslighting, there's loads of, and that again is symptomatic of a profoundly sick society, right? So please enter this conversation with an open heart. Please try not to not go into the division mindset that they often cultivate. That's the soil that they want to keep us in as a collective. Come back to a point and a center of truth, of knowing that ultimately what this is about the healing of humanity that has been enslaved and indoctrinated for so long. This is about us coming together to support each and every one of us. Woman, man, child, elder, the earth, the planet, the animals. This is about the healing and the returning back home to who we truly, truly are, and returning to the essence of love and peace and integrity and authenticity and the highest of truths, which is that universal truth of love and connectivity and oneness. Okay, so I want that to be the foundation of this conversation. So, for those of you that, we've had the files that have come up, we're watching what's going on the world stage. And now 62 million has come out. And all of these are indicative of, as I said, a very profoundly sick society. But if I go to the core of it, it's like a complete loss and forgetting of not just humanity, but soul. It's like the people that are running the show here, they've completely forgotten about their soul, about the divine, and are trying to play a version of God that is completely upside down and turned inside out. So what do you get? What do you get when you are in the absence of love, and when you're in the absence of light? You get shadow, and you get fear, you get greed, you get control, you get the want for power, right? And so the way that this is being reflected in men is that they're taking on those characteristics as well, and they have forgotten about the sacredness of women. And ultimately the sacredness of humanity, because if you can abuse a woman in that way, you are essentially abusing the mother, the sister, the daughter, the divine, the earth, the creation of all that is, which is innately feminine. And therefore you are disrespecting yourself. Because in that episode that I spoke about changing the roles of men and women, we all start as an XX chromosome, which means we all start feminine. And then it moves to XY if it becomes the masculine, right? So that feminine point of creation exists within all of us, within all of us. It is the creative force of all that is. This violation and abuse of women by men that have completely lost their soul, their humanity, their divinity, they've forgotten it, right? They've absolutely forgotten it. It's, on one hand, I could say it's abominable. It's shameful. It's vile. It's evil. It's pure, pure evil. But, having done over a decade and a half of inner child work, when I was doing this work with people, really at the core of it is like a deep, deep wound, a really deep wound that ultimately needs compassion. Now, when I say compassion, I don't mean that excuses the vile behavior. I put out a video some days ago where it was like, I felt the fire. I really felt the fire of just enough, like enough. What has happened to you guys? And you men in general, let me back up. Let me back up before the fire comes in again. Not that there's anything wrong with fire, but let me back up a moment. Because one of the things that I spoke to in this video when I was really feeling the fire is what got me wasn't just what we're seeing on the world stage, right? Like you can look at the files, you can look at 62 million, you can look at the way our leaders, quote unquote, I don't call them leaders, but just because that's the general term that they're known by, look at the behavior, right? It is ludicrous, ridiculous, immature, senseless, heartless, humanityless. I'm making that word up. We're seeing the example of just a terrible example, to be honest. And it's really easy to kind of put it in a blanket kind of generalized category where we go, this isn't okay and this needs to stop. And, there are voices that are coming up against that saying enough is enough, right? But there's something that is like not a little bit one step removed because it's outside of us. It's not in our personal life. But what I was speaking to is that even in our personal lives, and I do know some people actually that have been abused in the way that 62 million is revealing. And I personally know someone that's gone through that. And thankfully, there's been retribution and justice for it, but it exists, right? So any of you guys that are like, oh, it's just a gimmick, whatever, it exists. And I know it firsthand. Well, not firsthand, secondhand. What gets me is when I look at the state of men, even good men, I know good men in my life, that their self-esteem is so low, that their sense of self has somehow been so eroded that they're so lost within themselves that they just don't have the courage and the spine and the balls, excuse me, to stand up to truth, to stand up within themselves and show up with integrity and honesty and transparency, that they're lying to their girlfriends or their wives or their sisters or their mothers or to themselves. And if even a good man, never mind like going into this, horrendous, vile abuse and desecration of the feminine, if a good man within his just day-to-day life cannot be honest with himself because he's too scared. He's too scared to even find himself. And he's too scared to even be honest with himself. And he's too scared to show up with that honesty and truth to the women in his life. What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like if that's just like the base, imagine what happens when you get so far removed from yourself and so far removed from truth and integrity and honesty and authenticity that it becomes this grotesque beast that is causing so much harm and abuse to women and children. So for me, it's like start with the micro and then come out to the macro, right? This is a profound wounding that needs to go straight to the core. And unfortunately, I think, when we speak about the patriarchy to me isn't the masculine, because it's something entirely different, because it's the desecration of the masculine, the desecration of the feminine, the desecration of humanity. Period. This is something that unto itself has no divinity in it anymore. And so you cannot say that the patriarchy is about masculine and is only about men. Yes, is it led by men? Yes, but men that are so not in their divine masculine, and they are so in the, not even just the forgetfulness of the feminine, in the pure conscious intent to oppress the feminine within women and men, right? So I really want to separate that the patriarchy isn't what a man should be, and it's not the masculine what it should be. It's the shadow inverted, unhealthy, sickly aspect of just when something really goes wrong. I'm not even entirely convinced that it's human, right? Because I do believe humans at their core, in their core nature, we are compassionate, loving, generous beings. So the patriarchy, it's like this parasite, but actually we kind of have this idea that parasites come in and they are the problem, right? It's the parasite that's the problem. But often, actually, I've been reading about this, that the parasite comes in actually to alert that there's a toxin in the body and that the parasite is trying to eat the toxin. And of course, if we feed it junk and sugar, it's going to feed on that too, because that is a toxin, right? And so we go, shit, I've got parasites. And actually, the thing that we want to look at isn't the parasite. We want to look at why is the parasite there. Again, remember, we're not fighting the symptom. We want to fight the core root cause of this. So everything that we're seeing, we could see that this patriarchy is like parasitic, right? It's so parasitic in its nature, but what's driving it underneath is an incredibly sick terrain. And I think when you remove yourself from the divine, you are severing yourself from home. I'm getting a little bit philosophical and metaphysical here, so bear with me for a moment. When you remove yourself from the source of who you truly are, the light of who you are, and you're residing in darkness, and I'm not saying that darkness is bad. It's just that it's dimmed the light so much. There's always going to be a little bit of it, right? Because you are it. But it's dimmed it so far down that it's just the forgetting of the divinity of who you are. And in that, it's like, I imagine that everything starts to erode, right? Like a planet without the sun would die, nothing would survive. So I see the root cause of this is like a death of the spirit, the death of the soul. Like it's the there's a word for it. Oh, I can't think of it right now, but it's basically deteriorating. It can't fully die, but it is on its way to death unless it's, revived and resurrected, should I say. So let me just hone it back in. It's painful. It's really painful to see what's happened to men. And it's sometimes even more painful to see the hideous acts that men are doing, and that there are some men that go, meh, that they think it's a scam, they think it's a joke, they gaslight, they'll redirect the attention of the women. Oh, she dresses like this. We've heard the whole story. I don't even need to go into it, right? And that's what's deeply sad. So I feel encouraged when I see the men stand up and say, hey, not all men, but so many damn men. And until we all heal ourselves, we are all held responsible. I know I said that. I'm going to repeat that because that is so important. Women have undergone, humans have, right? Men and women, but there has been systemic abuse of women for eons now. Yeah, systemic abuse and systemic just gaslighting, right? Nobody cares. Nobody takes it seriously. Nobody understands why, women are scared to travel on their own or to go out at night, or all of the things that a woman has to think about that a man never, ever, ever, ever has to think about, right? But this systemic abuse of women can only happen when you strip away a man's honor, when you take their masculinity, their divine masculinity away from them. So the systemic abuse began before. This beast, let's call it, had to desecrate the masculine first before it could desecrate the feminine. It needed the masculine to lose all confidence in itself, to disconnect it from the divine feminine, because the divine masculine, wants to be in devotion to the feminine. But this beast took the divine masculine and made it turn against the divine feminine by disconnecting from it. And the moment it disconnected from its source, right? Because XX was the beginning, right? So from its source, it began to deteriorate. It began to lose its life, its steam. And we forget the further you are away from home, the further you are away from the light, the further removed you are from love, you forget. And then you take on the elements of the shadow, of fear, of greed, let me reframe that. It's not the elements of the shadow. It's just that when you fall into the shadow without the light, you cannot see the truth of all that is, right? Again, I'm not saying that the shadow is innately bad. It's just often, like, my favorite way of describing fear is the absence of love. It's what happens when we're in the absence of love. So when we're in the shadow, it's the absence of the light, right? And so it's the things that we hide away, and it's the things that we fester, and it's all the things that are untold, the lies, the untruths, the falsehoods, the shame, the whatever it is. It's all that stuff that's like, no, let's keep it in the dark. And the thing is, now it's all being illuminated because the light is getting stronger, which is beautiful. Our consciousness is rising, so we're able to see it. We have the maturity now to be able to see it and to deal with it, even though I know for so many people, your nervous system is probably going, I can't take anymore. I cannot take anymore. And it's just so ugly and so confronting and so despairing, and it can feel so hopeless, but it's been here. It's been here all along. We've just been like, watching Netflix, Disney, like, look at this distraction, look at this, focus on just like doing and achieving and succeeding, and selfishness, because it's like, oh, I want my glory and my fame and my success, and forget about one another. And, it's been this over time, tearing us apart from each other, but most importantly, most poignantly, is tearing us apart from source and from what we know is real deep down. So it began by needing to separate the masculine from the feminine, so that men began to see women as something that could be objectified, that wasn't a part of them, that wasn't a part of source, that wasn't a part of the earth, that it's like they can separate even from like their own mother. And I mean, my God, if I come back to the micro, there are so many men, just like women have their father wound, there are so many men that have major, major mother wounds. And the thing is we all have childhood wounds. We all do. I live in a place right now where the culture is still very, very backwards. It's still actually very patriarchal, but you get the mothers that can be very patriarchal in their own way, actually, because the way that I see the patriarchy is this part that it's like, I own you, I rule over you, I tell you what to do and what to not do, I control what you can and can't do, where you can and can't go. There's this element of like, you are not a free, sovereign, autonomous being, right? And so I was at the park yesterday with my daughter, and we were playing with the football, and there was this little boy that wanted to join in. He must have been like 3 or 4 years old. He was really cute, and his mother was nice. She was sweet, but it was like, I'd heard her before in this area, because like, no matter what the boy did, she would just shout at him, just shout. Everything was like this, like, no, don't do this, no, don't go there, what are you doing? And it was loud, like so loud that the whole park could hear her voice. And it's just so normalized in this culture. And I just thought, imagine being a child, but in this case a boy, where the mother is constantly shouting at you, is constantly telling you what you're doing wrong, is constantly controlling you, saying you can't do this, you can't go there, what are you doing? And there's this element of shaming, it's a very shaming culture. And so what kind of a man does that grow? That grows a man that's like, I'm not good enough. God, anything I do, I'm going to be reprimanded. I'm going to, I'm going to be shouted at. The men that I know in this culture, they are constantly expecting their girlfriends and their wives to shout at them, to yell, to get angry. And so I've experienced it because I've been in relationship with them, that it's like, if I bring something up, they're just immediately thinking I'm arguing with them. Like if I could write a text in the most kind of like eloquent, non-triggering way, and they think we're in an argument, because what they hear, the voice in their head that has been conditioned since when they were teeny tiny, is that a woman shouts at you. So, men that go, oh, women are also part of the patriarchy. Yes, we've all been influenced by it, all of us. Right. And so in this culture, I can see that, women take on that patriarchal, rather than working together and collaborating and being in the circle and respecting that, like child and elder and adult and adolescent, all and everything in between, we're all part of the circle together, and we all deserve respect. We deserve to be treated like we're conscious beings, right? And so, there's so much indoctrination with education, with parenting, with just the way that the society runs, that we're so far removed from that genuine, like, you are a conscious being and you deserve respect. It doesn't matter what age you are, doesn't matter what gender you are, doesn't matter what culture you are, right? We are so far removed from that. So do you see how all of these things are then the veins that come out that affect and create the society that we're in? So, I mean, it's like we need such an overhaul, like such a massive makeover for humanity and the way that we work, to just simply come back to heart and humility and humbleness and care and kindness. And of course, it has to start with us. That woman, that mother, she was treated like that by her mother or by her father, by her grandparents, by her community, where, like, shouting and shaming is normal. But, like, we got to stop normalizing this shit. Like, we've got to stop fucking normalizing the way that men talk about women, or the way that women sometimes treat their man or their child. Like, we are all responsible. We are all responsible for the patriarchal characteristics that we've learned. We have to unlearn them, and we've got to get out of blame, because we're just going to waste a hell of a lot of time if we point fingers and take sides and go into division. Again, that's what they want, right? Because we are less powerful. We are far more weak when we are divided. So all of us have to take responsibility for the way that we've showed up in patriarchal ways. All of us have to take responsibility even for our wounding of how we've been hurt and abused and affected by the patriarchy. Because these men, as I described, these good men that are so insecure and have such low self-esteem, and that are so wounded, but because of that, they're lying, they're cheating, or they're just cowards. Like I said, we need men that are going to rise up and speak to the truth and hold that accountable, hold the regression, and hold the abuse accountable, hold these men accountable, right? A man can't do that until he feels confident within himself, that he knows he's solid within himself. If he can't be in his truth, how can he face the greater truth? It's just not possible. If he can't be courageous within himself, how is he going to be courageous against a brutal world out there, right? So men also really have to take responsibility for their own wound, just as women do. You can't stay in the victimized role of, this has happened to me, and I'm doomed, and I'm never going to have what I want. And no, pull up your bootstraps. Come on. All of us. And I say that with love. One of the things I said in my video was that, like, sometimes the flame of love is fierce and it comes out with fury, but it's coming from a place of love, of like, enough is enough. No more of this shit. No more of this bullshit. No more of this abuse. No more of these lies. No more of this manipulation and control and just vile evilness. Enough. Right? But that comes from that love that says, I protect humanity. I protect women and children and men alike. I protect the goodness of who we are. I protect the divine source, God, universe, spirit. I protect that spark of creation that is in all of us. I protect the fucking stars and the earth and the beings and the waters and the air and the tree, everything. That flame, that furious flame of love is in the protection of all that is true, all that is real. Does that make sense? And so, I talked about how, sometimes it's a woman's role to call a man to rise, to really rise into his manhood. Because there's a lot of really scared boys. There are men that are running around like scared boys. And when they feel like they've been emasculated, when they've been removed from the divine within themselves, they can turn an eye, a blind eye, to just all that is sacred and divine and pure and true. And they can go to the inversion and into the dark side that is in the absence of light, in the absence of love, and do horrendous, heinous things to women and children. And ultimately, they're hurting themselves. So, what is the invitation? Again, this is not about blame. Please don't gaslight. Please don't go into excuses. This is too visible now to not face and confront it and do something about it. There's no savior. There's no some figure that's going to come in and poof, like a fairy godmother with a wand, make it better. Our world will not change until you and I do it. We do it. We are the makers of the world. We change it. We are the ones that say, enough to this. I'm not giving my energy to this. I'm not going to feed the fucking game. I'm not going to allow this to happen. And you do it in all the small and big ways that you possibly can. So if there are men in your life that speak poorly about women, you say, until you sort your shit out, I'm not hanging out with you. Go get therapy. Go start men's circles. Men desperately need brotherhood. Women have learnt that we need sisterhood. And, the patriarchy has put women against women, right? And women for a long time have fought against each other. And it's still there. Women are jealous and they do terrible things, terrible, terrible, terrible things to each other. But women now are also learning, well, we need our sisterhood. We need our sisterhood. And our soul sisters are incredible allies. And together we are so powerful, and together we are what is going to change the world. And I really do believe that women need to take the lead. We need to take the lead. This sect of men have been in control for too long. They've emasculated men, so men can no longer handle being at the helm. I'm sorry. Nope, not your role anymore. Your role is to support women. Put them at the helm. It's not going to be a pyramid, hierarchical, stupid structure like the patriarchy has been. When women come together, we do it in a circle. It becomes egalitarian, right? Be the outer circle, men, with your spears, that you are there to protect the sacred, the feminine, and therefore the masculine as well. We're coming back to the divine blueprint of who we are. So men, you need to grow your brotherhood. You need to come into truth within yourselves and not be pain avoidant, not be truth avoidant. You need to be honest about how you don't feel brave enough within yourself, or how you don't feel man enough within yourself, or all the ways in which being a man, you were taught the completely wrong way. Like, don't cry, don't share your feelings, don't call her for 3 days, sleep with as many women as you want. It's all fucking bullshit, right? Unlearn, relearn, but relearn not from society. It's a sick society. Don't even listen to the frickin' experts. Don't even listen to me. Go listen to your brothers. Go speak amongst yourselves. What has happened to you guys? Where have you lost your way? How could this have happened? Whether it's you or someone you know or someone that they know, or you're just looking at the men on the world stage, do not let this shit happen anymore. And it is on you as a brotherhood. It is on you to make it better. And women, I know, like we're at this place now where we've actually done a hell of a lot of work within ourselves. Doesn't mean that we're still don't need to evolve. We all are evolving. This is a school of life. But women have gotten to a point where so many of us choose to be single rather than in a bad relationship because we're waiting for the men to rise up to the same level of consciousness and awareness, that they've done the inner wound work, that they're familiar with their shadow, that they know how to communicate, that they know how to be empathic. And so a lot of us women are here going, we support you. We're here for you. We're not going to man bash you. That's not what this is about. We love men. Damn it, for better or worse, we love men. But we're no longer going to collude in the fuckery, in the games, in the lies, even the spiritual bullshit, Like we're no longer going to stand for it. And we're not going to fix you, and we're not going to mother you, and we're not going to save you. We're not going to do it for you. We also have to take responsibility for that, right? Like step out of the mummy role, step out of the savior role. Oh, I see your potential. No, we're here in our sovereignty, in our autonomy, saying when you're ready, we're here, and then we can connect in the most divine way. But until that point happens, until that moment, I stand as the queen of my own castle, right? In my own domain. Because I will not bring into the world anything less than what is in integrity, in divinity, in love, in conscious awareness, and in emotional and spiritual maturity. I don't want to create relationship that is unhealthy, that just creates more of that kind of festering parasitic energy. I want to be in something that, like, when we are in love and when we're in light, we know that it's like, poof, it's a massive burst of energy and vibration. It's hugely powerful, right? We need to create more of that. We need to create more light. We need to create more love. We need to create more truth. We need to create more authenticity, integrity. And sometimes that comes in with a sword of truth that's like, cut the fucking bullshit. Enough of this abuse. Truth is going to become one of the most important currencies along with authenticity. Because with more light on this planet, lies cannot take place. They will be called on like that. They will be called out like that, right? We can no longer live in the shadows. Too much beautiful light coming in. So if you're a man, create brotherhood. Talk about what hurts you, what scares you. Work through it. And don't let other men that are behaving poorly get away with it. I remember being at a party years ago, and this is at a spiritual community. And, there was one guy in particular that he would get drunk and he would just come up against women and he'd just like, oh, run into you and sweep his hand across your chest. Oh, ha, 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 ha. So, that shit needs to be called out, but it can't always be a woman to say, don't do that. It needs to be a man that's like, bro, dude, brother, not cool. Get out. But the thing is, when I say get out, we also can't exile. We can't exile our fellow brothers, right? It's calling them to account, to take responsibility, and with compassion to say, go get help. Go get the support that you need. Let's create the brotherhood where we can talk about these things. Let's create the brotherhood where we can be held accountable for the shitty ass behavior that we have. So my apologies for saying get out. We need to come back to the circle. We need to come back to the positive traits of being in a tribe, not tribalism, but being in the circle where when someone is sick and they're not well, the whole community takes care of them, right? Whether that's psychologically or physically or emotionally or spiritually. And we can't just address the symptoms anymore. We have to address the core root of what's going on. So brothers come together, sisters come together, brothers and sisters need to come together. There needs to be more that is in bringing us all together. But there might be a period where we still have to be kind of, parallel, side by side, working through these things. More and more women are speaking up and speaking out. More and more women are supporting each other. And now I'm seeing the beauty of men coming up and supporting women. This is a time of healing. And it's a time of growth. And it's a time of remembering. And that's beautiful. But we have to face the dark shit before it's going to get better. So no more to all that is vile and evil and based in lies and based in the desecration of all that is human and divine. No more of that. And any way, whether small or big, that you can be a part of creating the solution and the resolution and the evolution of this terrible pattern, do it. And if you are a part of saying that this is a scam, you are part of the problem. Go get help. Go do the healing work because you deserve it too, because a part of you is hurting and is wounded and has been severed from the feminine, from your divine masculine, from creation, from source itself, from love. So ultimately, what's the biggest message? Come back to love. Come back to love and take action from a place of love. Imagine the immense absence of love that would make a man do these heinous things to a woman. So infuse love in all that you do and all that you say, as much as is possible. I have to just leave it at that because there is no ending, there is no resolution to this. We're in it and we must face it with courage, bravery, collaboration, compassion, together. Sit with it, feel how uncomfortable it is. Feel the rage, feel the sadness, feel the despair. Whatever the feeling is, feel it, and then redirect it towards positive action. All right. As always, take it or leave it as feels right for you, and loving you from afar. Bye. You've been listening to Raw Conversations with Corinne Bloom. Thanks so much for showing up, listening in, and being a part of the conversation with me.